Just like with the previous installment, Mega Man Zero 3 was released worldwide the year after the previous game, Mega Man Zero 2. The last two sequel installments in the X series also came out in 2004, at least outside of Japan. For once, strangely, they didn't get X8 until the new year, despite Command Mission being a sequel. Weird, ain't it? Anyway, review aggregates for the Mega Man Zero series tend to put Zero 1 at the top, but general fan consensus is that Zero 3 is the real best of the series. And I am part of that camp. It also happens to be my favorite Mega Man game of all time. So let's get started on why that is. I've been a bit light on the plots of Zero 1 and 2 because they were much simpler in scope, as well as both building up to this game. I also didn't feel like spoiling the ending to Zero 2 because it is a pretty important moment in the whole narrative. But here, I'm going to let the dam fall and go through the entire plot of Mega Man Zero 3. So with that in mind, the following spoils the endings to Zero 1 and 2, as well as the entirety of 3. You have been warned, skip to the time indicated if you do not wish to be spoiled. The story of Zero 3 picks up a couple months after the fallout of Mega Man Zero 2, with Zero and the Resistance on the search for the escaped Dark Elf that was unleashed by El Paizo at the end of Mega Man Zero 2. But on their hunt, they come into conflict with the return of two notorious Elf War figures that were exiled from Neo Arcadia, the instigator Dr. Vile, and the immensely powerful Reploid from the same era known as Omega. Zero and Harpuya seem ready to take Omega down, when out of the blue comes the return of Copy X, who had blown himself up at the end of Mega Man Zero 1 in an attempt to kill Zero, here being revealed to have been resurrected by Dr. Vile. Copy X brings Vile and Omega back to Neo Arcadia along with a reluctant Harpuya, while Zero returns to the Resistance base to help formulate a new course of action against this turn of events. Eventually, the Dark Elf is spotted in Neo Arcadia, with Harpuya offering to seize it, but in the midst of this, Copy X calls out Harpuya for his failure to defeat the Resistance and ends up demoting him and the Four Guardians, instead giving Dr. Vile command of the Neo-Arcadian forces. This proves disastrous, as Vile's plan to catch the Dark Elf is to put Omega on an ICBM and launch him to where the Elf will be, which will get him there quickly but kill countless innocent humans. Zero transfers to the missile but is unable to stop the launch or Omega, thanks to the interference of the baby elves Kree and Pri, who have fallen into Dr. Vile's grasp. The missile impacts, and Omega is able to absorb the Dark Elf. Harpuya arrives to challenge Omega, being in fury at Vile and Copy X thanks to the countless lives they have thrown away, but is unable to stop him and nearly dies before being saved by Zero. Copy X then contacts the Resistance and demands that they hand over Ciel's new energy system, who at the start of the game has already finished it and has sent the message to Neo Arcadia, hoping it would end the hostilities. Ciel flat out refuses to hand over the Ciel system, given that Vile would almost certainly attack them afterwards, but Copy X takes this as a sign of terrorism and launches a full-scale attack on the Resistance. Zero repels the Neo-Arcadians, eventually defeating Copy X in combat, when the real X arrives to inform his duplicate that Vile was just using him and has abandoned the base they are in. Copy X rails at being used as a tool and tries to access his Seraph form, but this activates a bomb placed on him by Vile that goes off, killing him. Dr. Vile then broadcasts that due to Neo-Arcadian protocol, since he is the leader of the armies, he now becomes their leader with the death of Copy X, which was his entire goal from the get-go. X and Zero both set off to find information about Vile and his plans, with Zero finding data on the Dark Elf, Omega, Vile, and the Elf Wars that is analyzed to find any correlation between then and now. In the midst of all this, Harpuya also awakens in the Resistance base from his injuries, repulsed at being saved by his mortal enemies, but agrees with Zero that Vile and Omega must be stopped lest they harm more innocent humans. However, Harpuya refuses to work with the Resistance, and instead sets off on his own. Vile then reveals his plan to the Resistance, using Omega to broadcast the powers of the Dark Elf worldwide, allowing him to take control of every Reploid on the planet. Thankfully, Zero himself is technically not a Reploid, and X arrives, having found out where Vile and Omega are, allowing Zero to stop the broadcast and then challenge Omega at Vile's hidden base. Zero takes out Omega, but the debris clears away to reveal another Zero. Vile tells our Zero that Omega is actually the real Zero. Vile had taken his original body before the Elf Wars, with this Zero having been residing in a duplicate the entire time. But Zero knows that it's the heart and mind that truly matter, and defeats this Zero with the assistance of Harpuia, Fafnir, and Leviathan, ending Vile's threat and curing the curse of the Dark Elf, restoring her to her true form, that of the Mother Elf. Unfortunately, due to losing his body in Zero 2, X cannot stay in the physical world any longer, and the legendary Blue Bomber fades into cyberspace for the last time. Back at the Resistance base, Ciel remarks to Zero that she doesn't care if Zero isn't the real thing, because to her he is the real legendary hero. Zero thanks her, remarking that he is indeed Zero, ending Mega Man 03. This particular game, in my estimation, has the best narrative of the series. Dr. Vile, right off the bat, is a very effective villain, much more so than Copy X, who only appeared at the very end of Zero 1, or El Paizo, who would be a somewhat tragic character if he wasn't so cliched and obvious as a villain. Vile, on the other hand, shows right off the bat that he means business, and the way he so coolly usurps control of Neo Arcadia is very well done. And while the other Guardians kinda get the short stick in this installment, Zero 3 brings to a close Harpuia's character arc from Zero 2 in a really great way. It's just a shame that this is his last appearance in any Mega Man game. Such a waste of character. It seems to be a pretty common consensus among the Mega Man community that the Zero series has the greatest attempt and success of story, and the fact that the first two Zero games so subtly lay the foundation for this one speaks to that. But that's just scratching the surface for me. The real reason why I love Mega Man 03 so much to this day is the absolutely perfected gameplay and design, thanks to some big changes to the series' mainstay aspects. For one, you have yet another rod weapon that replaces the chain rod, this time the recoil rod. On its own, the recoil rod is just a tonfa that attacks in only 6 directions as opposed to 8, but all that changes once you take advantage of the numerous actions the charged recoil rod possesses. Aside from having great range in both length and width, most enemies, as well as some scenery objects struck by the charged recoil rod, get flung or pushed back, and will strike other foes in the path, as well as being a much easier way of attacking enemies with some form of shield. However, the most notable function of the recoil rod is its pogo jump ability. By using the charged recoil rod downwards while grounded, or on an enemy while midair, you fling Zero himself high into the air, allowing you to reach high up places or perform tricky platforming. It's all really fun to play with, and the stages in Zero 3 utilize these functions much more than the stages in Zero 2 did with the chain rod. Speaking of Zero 2, the somewhat confusing form system was removed, and in its place comes the chip system. By equipping one chip each to Zero's head, body, and feet, you can enhance Zero's abilities in various ways. Besides providing your elemental attacks, you can also gain abilities such as reduced knockback, auto weapon charging, and finally the return of Zero's signature double jump after being missing for 2 games. You acquire chips for Zero either from defeated bosses or by finding them in secret discs. Each stage has 10 discs that are either hidden throughout the level or dropped from certain enemies. And besides upgrade chips, they can also contain background info, enemy data, various amounts of E-crystals, or cyber elves. Speaking of which, something that was completely changed to Zero 3 is the way of handling cyber elves. Besides now carrying all your elves with you in every stage, elves are now split into 2 subcategories, Satellite and Fusion Elves. Fusion Elves act just the same as elves from the previous games, being gone once used and generally upgrading Zero in some way. Satellite Elves, on the other hand, provide constant benefits and never die, but you are limited to equipping 2 satellites at a time. Normal Satellite Elves include ones that, say, fire projectiles at enemies or scatter life energy, but Fusion Elves that would upgrade Zero's abilities can be changed into Satellite Elves by feeding them E-crystals, allowing for a way to benefit from helpful additions without lowering your score. And finally, some elves can have their effects further improved by feeding them more crystals, such as upgrading one elf from healing you completely to doing the same, as well as filling one sub-tank. Further on the subject of cyber elves, one completely unique addition to Zero 3 is cyberspace. Throughout most stages are portals to cyberspace, and once inside, every upgrade-style fusion elf you have is instantly applied to Zero without consuming them. But enemies will not drop secret discs, you suffer a 10-point loss to mission score, and you'll be unable to fight the stage boss inside the realm. I'm pretty sure cyberspace was intended to provide a means to assist completing difficult stages, and all it really does is make getting A ranks and thus EX skills harder. But one stage is worth going into cyberspace in order to have a special boss fight. Rankings are also done a bit differently. They now apply an average weighting system to determine your overall rank, meaning one bad stage won't drop your rank, but multiple bad runs will make it much harder to get back up to the threshold. It wasn't a direly needed change, but hey, it's nice to have. However, one change I am super glad to have is the removal of the weapon skill levels from 0, 1, and 2. Right off the get-go, you have full access to Zero's combos and charge attacks with every weapon. It's about damn time, I say. All in all, 03 fixed or improved just about every aspect of the Mega Man Zero series that could have standed for improvement. And on top of that, you still have the exciting fast-paced action and platforming, intriguing stage design, and fist-pumpingly awesome music tracks. For the first time ever, the stage bosses seem to get a bit of personality to them before getting pulverized. And hey, wait, is that Dr. Eggman? Oh, it's a cactus that controls ice. Uh-huh. The midway point of the game is also one of the coolest things done in any Mega Man game, putting you through recreations of Mega Man 0, 1, and 2 stages, complete with remastered 0, 1 bosses that have totally new strategies and everything. It all speaks towards 03 being intended as the capper of the series, at least before 04 was conceived. And as far as final bosses go, Omega is easily among the best of any game ever. It may not last super long if you know how to win, but this battle between the Zeros is so iconic to the Mega Man verse, it was part of the inspiration behind my entire channel. To put it bluntly, Mega Man 03 is a masterpiece, easily the best of its series and in my view, the best Mega Man game ever made. Everything about it is essentially perfection. It has just the right amount of challenge, great amount of stage and enemy variety, engaging boss fights, and a compelling story. I can't recommend Mega Man 03 enough. It is still easily the best game Inticreates has ever made, as well as just one of the best games made, period. Do play this at some point in your life if you have not already. You won't regret it. Well, with that over with, the next episode will cap off the Mega Man Zero series with a look on the final installment Mega Man 04, as well as the compilation re-release Mega Man Zero Collection. See you then!